Hey y'all, welcome to WM Plus. It's NJPW Dominion's predictions. I'm Advi Devin, here to start up a new series here for WatchaMania in general, both here on WM Plus and on the main channel. We're going to be doing predictions for all pay-per-views and special events upcoming for any of the promotions we follow. You know, we got ourselves New Japan Dominion, we got ourselves MLP Resurrection, we have All in Texas, so on and so forth. So we're going to be looking to get the ball rolling with these things, trying to hold myself accountable and get this stuff out to you because I think these are fun things to participate in. Not unlike the prediction series, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But for now, let's get into the card. Alrighty, so starting off with the kickoff match. Not everybody tunes into the kickoff match. Personally, I find it is a great way to get up and running for the show just because here in the States, especially on the East Coast, it's brutal hours, even though I do find Dominion's start time a little more forgiving. But yes, we got Katsuya Murashima and Shoma Kato up against Daiki, Nagai, and Masatora Yasuda. Masatora Yasuda recently returned from injury not too long ago. Both him and Daiki Nagai marking their 1-year debut as Young Lions, like in ring. So I say this match is a little bit more must win for them, but knowing how the hierarchy works, I see this being a Murashima and Kato win, just because they're the more experienced duo, both individually and collectively. So I see it going that way for them, but who knows? We could see a rare victory sneak out, and we do know that Daiki Nagai is inching ever so close. He's getting incrementally better with each passing performance, so I think it's only a matter of time before he gets a singles win. That being said, I don't think he gets a tag win here. So, yes. Murashima and Kato for the win. On to the first match of the main card. One that I think is going to be a big talking point of the show. One that I can't really make up my mind about itself. Not so much the result, but rather the specific discrepancy about it, and that is the new member of House of Torture who wants to join this faction. I mean, seriously, and I want to say they're completely down on their luck, but they aren't. They're still never openweight 6-man tag champs, albeit one hazy title defense a couple of months ago, which was the last time House of Torture got a new member in the form of SANADA, who, yes, in this match, teaming up with Narita and Yujiro Takahashi. Sho's not in this match. He'll be challenging for the junior heavyweight tag titles later on in the card. We'll talk about that in a bit. But, yes, 2/3 of the 6-man tag champs in this match. Up against Drilla Moloney, Clark Connors, DEFY world champion. Chase Owens is his name, and, of course, Taiji Ishimori. More recent members of the War Dogs alongside Robbie X. Now, I think the easier thing to answer here for me is the results. I think House of Torture do House of Torture things to get the win. That feels like the writing's on the wall. I could be wrong. It all depends on who the mystery partner is, the new member. I feel like the easy, even lazy way to go about it would be another defection from War Dogs to House of Torture, which would, in this case, be a formal defection from Bullet Club as an individual. Not sure how much weight that holds. I'm not like a tried and true New Japan fan. I've been following the product full time since the top of the year. I'm slowly but surely learning about the history of it and the lore of it as a promotion, just as a disclaimer. So if I do say something that's like, duh, this happened, do feel free to tell me in the comments, because that is more informative than a lot of people like to give it credit for. So yes, House of Torture. I can see, if it is a defection, it being Gato. I think that would almost be hilarious. Gato defects and joins the team. I think it'd be doubly funny if he defects, joins House of Torture, and Bullet Club War Dogs still win. I think that would be... I don't know how that would matter in the long term, but I do think that would be fun television at the moment. That being said, House of Torture due to antics is my guess. A little more serious of a prediction I could give. It's really hard to throw a prediction out there without it just being like a young lion or something. You know, what if a young lion formally comes up and joining a faction and it's House of Torture? This is why I mentioned how little I know New Japan, because I feel like a more informed a more informed fan might have a better idea as to who this could be. But ultimately, I kind of like that I'm in the dark here because then I'm going to be fully taken aback by whoever it is. So, looking forward to that. Spent a lot of time talking about that first match. I will try and be a little bit more concise in the upcoming matches. Up next, we're going to have effectively a tag match of singles wrestlers, is how I perceive it. I mean, everybody does tag matches in New Japan. We got Shota Umino teaming up with the TV champion, El Phantasmo, up against Ryohei, I always stumble with his name. Ryohei Oiwa, I believe, and Zack Sabre Jr. And initially when I saw this on paper, I was like, oh, Zack getting back to the television title. Interesting move. Wouldn't have done it myself, but I can deal. And then I realized, no, this is more about Oiwa. So, and honestly, good for him. Good showing in the New Japan Cup, even though he did come up against short. He did come up short against the aforementioned ZSJ. I do see the TMDK squeaking out a win here. I imagine the ideal scenario for TMDK is that Oiwa pins El Phantasmo to kind of like really eke out a title match, likely to happen on the New Japan Soul Tour upcoming. But time will tell. But yes, that is my prediction. TMDK for the win. I just don't see how Umino and Phantasmo can work as a team. But I mean, hey, we're going to talk about the heavyweight tag title scene a little bit later, and we see an oddball team working there. So anything can happen, right? But yes, TMDK is my final prediction on that one. Up next, we're going to have part of Hiroshi Tanahashi's final road, titled Connection. Between Yuya Uemura and Hiroshi Tanahashi, their only match happening in 2021, going in the favor of Tanahashi, as one would expect. But the tale of the match here is Tanahashi sees Yuya as the future, and you know, quite literally as the sun to rise for New Japan. So I can see Uemura getting his win back here, but I can also see a situation where Tanahashi gets the win and Yuya Uemura is faced with the question, am I really what Tanahashi thinks I am? And that could lead to a third match down the road because we still, while it is closing in, Tanahashi still got about 6 months and he's working full time. You know, the rematch could happen as soon as the very next tour. So I think this can go either way. I feel like the safe bet is Yuya Uemura. But Tanahashi's lost a lot lately. And while that could just translate to a losing streak, you know, we've seen this happen. You know, people fall off the horse and they have a hard time getting back on it. But I see this being a bounce back win for Tanahashi and a very pensive loss for Uemura. So Tanahashi's my pick. Now on to the Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. We mentioned before we have Master Wato and finalist of the Best of Super Juniors this year, Yo, up against House of Torture, comprised of Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Sho, the two members of the faction that competed in the previously mentioned tournament. Off the top of my head, I can't exactly remember how things went for Yo. I do believe Yo overcame Kanemaru in his block. I want to say Sho was A block. Sho was A block, yes, because Mao was A block, and I remember their stuff distinctly. Yes, but Master Wato, for lack of a better way of putting it, was bullied out of his potential finalist spot by House of Torture, who throughout the entire tournament did as one would expect them to do and got all up involved in their own matches, including members of the faction that were not in the tournament. But we saw in particular Master Wato fall victim to it most, and I think that probably came from, you know, House of Torture finding holes in their game plan early on. As we saw, I think, in their second match, it didn't quite work out in their favor, but towards the end, it seemed like they had it figured out. And unfortunately for Master Wato, who had a very strong showing for the first half of the tournament, really out to prove that the only reason he didn't win last year's tournament was because he wasn't in it, was cut short, quite literally the legs from underneath. So we're going to see if the tag team champions can get some revenge in the form of a tag title defense, or if House of Torture is going to lobby up more gold, which I would hate, as they've been champions since January 30th with those aforementioned 6-man tag team championships, and they have defended it all of one time against the War Dogs. So I don't think I want to see them with more titles, but I think that's exactly why we should be rooting for Watto and Yo, huh? I mean, yes, I think the tag team champions defend. I'm blanking on if they've already had a tag title defense at this point. If they did, I watched it in a very early hour of the morning. But yes, possibly the first title defense. Regardless, early in their reign, I think they're going to keep it going. Now on to the fifth match, the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championship on the line. United Empire, Callum Newman and Great Khan defending the titles up against Taichi and Tomohiro Ishii. My understanding is the latter two have had issues in the past. They've had a feud of sorts, and this most recent tag run is the first time they've teamed together, and they've been on a roll. It goes to show that enemies can make for great allies, and it is possible that carries them to more gold. Now, personally, I see United Empire, and no pun intended, as a united front. I think that they are going to have a little bit more unison to them, even though we haven't seen Callum Newman and Okan team up all that much together. Now, we can't really look to the most recent tournament because that was primarily junior heavyweights, but we did have a few heavyweight appearances on that tour and even the tour prior. From the point they won the titles and even before then, Great Khan and Callum Newman do not have many tag matches together. And I think part of that is due to the fact Jeff Cobb's departure, JC Mateo's departure. But we have Okan and Callum Newman a part of what is otherwise a very unified faction. And I think that they're going to keep a hold of their tag team championships just like the previous team. Ishii already has the strong openweight title. I don't think we need to have another double champion in New Japan right away, although it does seem like it happens relatively often over here. Understandably so, more championships that people can vie for will naturally make that happen. Especially with division crossover and singular divisions having more than one championship. So yes, I have United Empire getting the win and retaining their championships. Now on to the sixth match. Speaking of double champions, or at least recent double champions, Konosuke Takeshita, former AEW International Champion, has kind of been facing some choppy water since dropping that title to Omega, I'll say. He wins some, you lose some. But here in New Japan, he still seems to hold his own. He seems to hold up well, and he's going up against someone who has actually claimed a victory over him here in New Japan. And with that being said, with that coming in last year's G1, I see the writing on the wall for Boat No Leg to win the title here, break the tiebreaker, because their match at New Beginning earlier this year went in the favor of Takeshita, while he had all that momentum behind him. Not so much momentum now. But I think Takeshita's on the bounce back. I think the Don Callis family has a stronger presence in New Japan now than it did then. And I see if push comes to shove and Oleg gets a little too close to victory, we're going to see a Rocky Romero pop up, perhaps. And that could drastically change the tide. We don't see interference like that outside of House of Torture all that much in New Japan. But you know how Don Callis family moves. Yeah, I could be wrong. Takeshita is very loved over there in Japan. They might just simply leave it to him to win. But whatever the case may be, I see him retaining the title and going on for a little bit longer as champion. Nothing says that they can't meet once again down the road. For all we know, they'll meet again in this year's G1, which apparently Takeshita has been spoiled for through a poster in the background of a shot or something like that. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. That's just things I see floating around on social media. Regardless, I see a world where they are both in this year's G1, and I can see a world where they face each other yet again. And the environment, the tournament atmosphere lends itself to Boltin Oleg, because I can see a 5-match series, and then you have Boltin Oleg in a third attempt, challenge for that title somewhere down the line later on in the fall, or even come back around to Wrestle Kingdom next year. I think there's more mileage in Boltin Oleg's growth, but he could quite simply claim the title on Sunday. Who knows? That being said, I have Takeshita to win, so that's my pick locked in. Alrighty, now on to the 7th match, the final non-title match of the evening. It's going to be a dog collar chain death match, as labeled by New Japan Pro Wrestling, between David Finlay and Evil, the leaders of the Bullet Club War Dogs and Bullet Club in general, as well as House of Torture, respectively. So, this, of course, feels like can't leave well enough alone. Much like the opening match, we have, yet again, War Dogs versus House of Torture. And it seems much like AEW, War Games / Blood and Guts does not seem to resolve faction feuds over here. Hopefully this match does. I'm not saying that I'm sick of seeing them face each other, but I want to see more for David Finlay. And if he keeps getting held up with House of Torture, I just don't think that's going to do him any favors in chasing a championship. You know, I feel like he needs to have another singles title sooner rather than later. That being said, we have David Finlay 2-0 against Evil. And I feel like that paints a picture that Evil gets the win here. Now, David Finlay, because he's over, because he's got so much more mileage in him as a top guy, you might want to give him the win, but I feel like not just because of the record, Evil needs it more. You know, how over he is in Japan, notwithstanding, I think as a faction leader to be concerned about within the company, especially as one who outright threatened Tanahashi when he, quote unquote, left it Wrestle Kingdom weekend earlier this year before returning at New Beginning. I think that there needs to be a little bit more danger put behind him. And I think a definitive win over David Finlay, which can only lead to complications between him and Gabe Kidd that I feel like are ever so slightly hinted at, I can see it lending itself to the case of Evil defending. So, yeah, that's going to be my prediction. I think it's Evil for the win at Dominion, as insane as it would be, especially considering that the idea for this match was kind of born off of the attack on David Finlay and what was supposed to be the victory celebration for War Dogs. This one, I think more so than any, can go either way, but I'm thinking Evil's going to eke it out in some way. And you already know it's going to become faction warfare very fast. This is not going to stay a one-on-one match for very long. There's very little reason for it to. You know, I'm sure we can excuse some people coming out due to the match opening the show, but there are still plenty of members of both factions that, well, I shouldn't say plenty, but there are still several members of both factions who aren't in any match. So I say, well, actually, House of Torture is fully lobbied up. But yes, I think that this is going to be more fuel for the House of Torture fire. Now on to the semi-main, the 8th match. We got the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship, Yota Tsuji defending up against Gabe Kidd in a rematch from Osaka, specifically a rematch from New Beginning in Osaka. It's funny, we were coming right back around to the very same setting for the rematch, and due to, of course, House of Torture ruining the previous one. Well, the ending of the previous one. We had a double knockout between the two men. They just couldn't. They pretty much beat each other into submission, and House of Torture took that moment to strike, and they broke off their alliance with the War Dogs and thus launched the feud we are seeing hopefully resolve in other matches on this card. And with that being the case, I would love to see Gabe Kidd win the championship that David Finlay lost to Yota Tsuji. Make no mistake, I am a big Yota Tsuji guy. Becoming a full-time New Japan fan has had me really gravitate towards Yota Tsuji in the same way I've gravitated towards Gabe Kidd. And part of that is because when I finally decided, all right, I'm watching this product full-time, it was New Year's Dash right after Wrestle Dynasty, and these two lads faced off and began their feud. That was fresh off the Kenny Omega match for Gabe Kidd, and I was really into Gabe Kidd before that match, and that's just kind of solidified my fandom. So I want to see him get another singles championship run with an IWGP title. I think would be even cooler. Don't get me wrong, the strong titles, never titles, they're nice, but it feels like because they don't have the platforms they're meant to be the championships of, they feel kind of empty. At the very least, could stand to have to be renamed. I wouldn't mind a world where we unified the strong and never openweight championships into the IWGP openweight championship, but they might want those names to stay on it just for the sake of providing those titles a little bit more of a unique identity. You know, we have several heavyweight titles. Actually, no, we don't have any IWGP openweight titles. That might not be as bad of an idea as I was convincing myself it was. Regardless of title unification conversation, I think Gabe Kidd gets the win here in what will be an incredibly hard-fought battle. Will not be mad at Tsuji defending because there is more mileage in this title reign, but I also think that it would just create more room for him to move into a different title picture, focus a little bit more on the G1. You know, imagine him winning the G1 this year, going on to Wrestle Kingdom to face the champion, be it Goto or Takagi. But for now, I got Gabe Kidd winning the Global Heavyweight title. Now for the main event. We got ourselves Hiroki Goto with the Goto Revolution defending his title against Shingo Takagi, former World Heavyweight Champion himself. Big fan of Takagi, honestly. Liked his work even before I was watching New Japan full time. Seen him in some early Dragon Gate stuff, as Dragon Gate was kind of like the first non-WWE promotion I really sunk my teeth. Well, non-WWE TNA promotion I really sunk my teeth into. There's a good chance of Takagi winning here, but the Goto Revolution is kind of taken off. For all this time simmering, 9 attempts at the title, finally claiming it at New Beginning. He's had a hell of a run. Every single opponent he's faced, I've convinced myself he was dropping the title to, and then he convinced me that he was and should have been retaining. So I could go through that very same process on Sunday, but I am a fan of Takagi. I'd like to see him win. I do think that there is a world we could see G1 Climax winner Yota Tsuji facing off against World Heavyweight Champion Shingo Takagi at Wrestle Kingdom, and we could play off of LIJ history. That history, I don't know. So I'm not sure if there's much to play off there. So that's why I can't very confidently say Takagi gets the win, especially because they haven't done much to remind me of any said history. We do know that the faction is kind of dissolved for the time being. So they remain technically unaffiliated with the faction, but still aligned with one another alongside Hiromu Takahashi. But with that being said, my safe prediction is going to be Hiroki Goto for the win. He has convinced me. I think he is sitting to get to that territory. I say this on the watch-alongs all the time. Starting to get to the territory of, until I hear the 3, he's not dropping the title, no matter how much story sense it makes for him to, because he has defended it against people who very convincingly could have just taken the title from him. And then we could tell the story about how Goto, was he a paper champion or not? But it seems like they're not interested in doing that. I think they're interested in establishing Goto as a top guy. And I'm here for it. I'm not against Goto. He has a great move set, a great presentation. The scepter stuff that he does in his entrance feels so much less corny than it has any right to be. I feel like he makes it cooler than it is, alongside his music, which just pumps you up. When I'm sitting there at 6:30 in the morning off of 4 hours of sleep watching the 3-hour show, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a fun match, but I'm ready for this to end. And then his music hits, I'm like revitalized. So I got to give it to him. And I think that that's the case for a lot of others as well. Goto for the win. But love you, Takagi. Dude is awesome. Great energy. Buy his book. But that was the predictions for NJPW Dominion. Do apologize for the rocky pathway here. I didn't do a script or anything. I literally just had the website up with the preview and was going off of that with a general idea of what I thought, so we'll see how I structure things but in the future. But for now, hope this has been enjoyable. If you don't mind, please do leave a thumbs up on this video. It helps us so much. This is also the first upload to this channel, so we want to try and get that ball rolling. Do please tune in this Sunday to the New Japan Dominion Watchalong live reaction stream. If you're not able to watch it live, that's fine. The VOD remains up, so you can just pop it on alongside the show, and you still have that extra, community feel of watching wrestling, because wrestling is always more fun with others. Now to the prediction series thing that I was talking about earlier. Please do indulge me for a moment. You see we got a little project over on the Discord. We've been running for a little over 2 years now. It's called the Prediction Series. We run it in monthly leagues. So how this process works is you will draft a fantasy faction of AEW and ROH roster members, and based on their appearances in matches, throughout the AEW ROH shows of each given month accumulates you points. Additionally, alongside that, you will make predictions for any pay-per-views or special events happening that month. In the case of June, we'll only have Dominion applying to that. So we have Dominion predictions happening over there as well. And those will accumulate you points as well. Most points at the end of the month wins a gift card prize, and any other prizes kind of stockpiled in there by the team. It's mostly for fun. So I hope nobody gets too caught up on like the money or the prizes aspect of it, because it's just an extra layer of investment in the product, especially if one is a very experienced wrestling fan and kind of sees the writing on the wall more than some other fans would. So I think that's a little more fun way of investing. It's very much fantasy football for pro wrestling. So do give it a check out if you like. Also over on the Discord is side casting any shows that we do watch alongs for. So if you don't have NJPW Worlds, come on over. It's kind of like going to a bar to watch the pay-per-view or something like that. You know, hang out over there, hop in the YouTube chat and vibe out with us. So yeah, thank you so much for hanging out, everybody. Until next time, take care and happy wrestling. Peace.